Liam Adetayo sat in the first-class section of the airplane, his tailored suit and confident demeanor a testament to his hard work. A celebrated lawyer, he had just won a significant case that placed him at the forefront of the fight against racial profiling. Yet, as he scrolled through his phone, a storm brewed that would challenge everything he knew about his place in the world. The atmosphere shifted abruptly when the flight attendant approached him with a cold, dismissive expression. "Mr. Adetayo, can you please gather your things?" Liam's brow furrowed in confusion as he looked around at the other passengers. Their eyes flickered with a mix of discomfort and curiosity, but none spoke up. The flight attendant's voice felt like a whip cracking through the air, revealing layers of systemic discrimination cloaked in politeness. "Excuse me? I believe I'm in the right seat," Liam replied, his voice struggling to maintain its calm. "This is a first-class section, but this isn't your section. You need to move," she stated, her tone leaving no room for argument. Chloe Wexler, a passenger seated nearby, smirked as she sipped her champagne. The cruel delight on her face illustrated the casualness of institutional racism, as her laughter echoed like a mocking refrain. "Maybe he thought he could just breeze through life like this," she jeered, her tone laced with disdain. Anger began to bubble within Liam. "I have a first-class ticket. Look at my boarding pass." He gestured to the crumpled piece of paper lying next to him, but as he reached for it, the flight attendant snatched it from the ground and tossed it aside, as if it held no significance. "That doesn't matter. We have to ensure the comfort of our guests," she maintained, completely disregarding Liam's plight. Liam felt a wave of humiliation wash over him, exposed in front of his fellow passengers. "You have no right to do this. It's wrong." His voice trembled, torn between outrage and despair. The cabin filled with murmurs as passengers exchanged uneasy glances. Some began to film the incident, capturing not just a moment of injustice but a reflection of society's failure to confront racism directly. The tension in the cabin thickened, creating an almost palpable heaviness. Liam stood firm, desperation edging his voice. "I worked hard for this ticket. I'm a lawyer fighting for justice every day. What kind of message does this send?" With a dismissive wave of her hand, the flight attendant retorted, "That you need to know your place." As disbelief spread among the spectators, Emily Dawson, a white woman in a beige sweater, felt her heart race. She shifted uncomfortably, in her seat, caught between the moral dilemma of speaking up or remaining silent. The weight of the moment pressed down, forcing her to confront her own privilege and fear. At that moment, the flight attendant's condescending words resonated with the truth of societal prejudice, sparking something within Emily. She stuttered, glancing at Liam. "This is not right." Chloe, unfazed, scoffed, "Oh, please, it's just a seat. Why does he have to make this a big deal?" Her arrogance only added to the rising tension, but now Emily felt emboldened to stand up for what was right. As Liam's crumpled boarding pass lay discarded near his feet, it became a haunting symbol of disempowerment. It illustrated the harsh truth that even concrete evidence could fail to protect individuals against the tides of prejudice. "My ticket means nothing to you, does it?" Liam asked, his voice tinged with pain. Murmurs of frustration spread through the cabin like wildfire. The faces of the onlookers reflected realization and shame as they witnessed Liam's dignity being stripped away before their eyes. "This has to change," a passenger muttered under their breath, but his words fell on the deaf ears of fear-stricken spectators too intimidated to act. The narrator's voice cut through the rising tension, addressing the audience directly to encourage self-reflection. "In a space that promises comfort, the reality of discrimination hides behind polite smiles. Every day, countless individuals face a battle against prejudice, often without a witness or voice." The commentary inspired those watching to ponder the deeper implications of privilege and bias. What privilege truly means is often cloaked in assumptions. Are we prepared to challenge our views of what equity looks like? The story shifted, back to a flashback of Liam in a courtroom, passionately defending a client. His confidence radiated through the room, a stark contrast to the vulnerability he now faced in the airplane. "Success doesn't shield me from this," he admitted to a colleague. an echo of despair coloring his words. Now framed within the cabin's harsh glare, the flight attendant's bewilderment revealed how deeply roots of bias ran in the structures that upheld her authority. Chloe's expression twisted into that of shock and annoyance as she faced the consequences of her actions. "I'm a paying customer. What do you expect me to do? Let him sit there," she boldly declared, unbothered by the morality of her claims. Amidst the chaos, Liam stood resolute, fueled by a newfound determination. The time for silence had passed. The call for justice echoed louder than personal humiliation. Emily felt a surge of courage built within her. "I can't stay silent," she murmured, her heart racing as she turned to face the unfolding injustice. The bond of shared humanity pulled her to action, even as the fear of societal backlash pressed hard against her conscience. "I can't just watch this," she thought, her resolve solidifying. Their eyes met, Liam's imploring for solidarity and understanding, and in that moment a silent agreement was reached. Theo, a younger bystander, tightened his grip on his camera, capturing the raw emotions playing out before him. The lens not only documented the incident, it foreshadowed the potential for change. "This needs to be heard," he whispered, recognizing his own power in amplifying marginalized voices. As the chaos unfolded, Liam glanced at his phone, his heart aches as a message from his wife Naya flashed across the screen. "I can't wait to see you. We'll talk about the case and celebrate together. Remember, I believe in you." For Liam, the stakes felt higher than ever before. They reached beyond personal humiliation, encompassing the safety and trust within his family. As tension reached a boiling point, Liam took a deep breath. "What if this isn't just about me?" he proposed, his voice steady and resolute. "What if it's bigger?" A murmur swept through the weighty silence, an acknowledgement dawning on the passengers, sowing the seeds of change within their hearts. With the stage set for confrontation, it was clear that silence would no longer be an option, and Liam's fight for justice was just beginning. Liam stood nervously at the check-in counter, excitement bubbling in his chest for what was supposed to be a celebratory flight after a hard-fought legal victory. Yet, as he handed over his ticket, Rachel Kim frowned, her brow furrowed in uncertainty. "Mr. Adetayo, I'm having some trouble finding your booking in our system," she said, glancing at him and then back at her screen, her voice laced with hesitation. "What do you mean?" "I have my confirmation right here," Liam replied, pulling his phone out to show her the email. He could feel the eyes of other passengers shifting toward him, the atmosphere thickening with unspoken judgments. Rachel tilted her head, managing a tight-lipped smile. "I'll need to check with my supervisor." Liam couldn't shake the uncomfortable feeling settling in his stomach as he waited. Just then, a stranger rushed past him, bumping his shoulder. "Sorry, didn't see you there," the man muttered, leaving an inexplicable sense of blame hanging in the air. "Are you serious?" Liam thought, frustration coursing through him. This was a small act, but it echoed the much larger theme of microaggressions he had faced too many times. As he moved closer to the boarding gate, Liam tried to maintain his calm, but each encounter felt like a small brush against his confidence. Chipping away at the strong exterior he worked hard to maintain, he stood tall, hoping to project composure, even as he felt targeted by those subtle reminders that he didn't quite belong. The boarding process took longer than expected. Liam shifted from foot to foot, anxiety building as he became aware of the looks from fellow travelers. There was a whisper here, a chuckle there, each one a tiny blow to his already rattled spirit. Mid-flight, Chloe Wexler approached him with an air of authority that made his stomach churn. "Excuse me. I believe there's been a mistake about your seat assignment," she declared, condescendingly eyeing Liam. "What do you mean? This is my seat," Liam protested, confusion swirling as he felt her dismissiveness envelop him like a heavy cloak. Chloe crossed her arms, a smirk creeping onto her face. "You probably didn't understand the seating chart correctly. I'm sure we can sort this out." That smirk felt like the weight of centuries of prejudice piled onto his shoulders, her words reinforcing stereotypes about who belonged in first class. Liam felt the anger rise within him, but also a smudged trace of doubt. He held out his ticket, astonishment coursing through him. "Here's my boarding pass," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. The flight supervisor, Gregory Hale, arrived at that moment, but his indifference was palpable. "I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to side with Miss Wexler here. We need to keep everything running smoothly," Gregory stated, not even glancing at Liam's ticket. The disbelief washed over Liam. It was clear that authority figures were upholding the very biases that shackled him, choosing to believe the confident white woman over him, a black man with clear proof of his rights. The confrontation escalated. When Officer Marcus Drake stepped onto the plane, his reputation for targeting minorities hanging heavily in the air. Fear simmered in the passengers and they began to record the incident, phones held up like shields and swords. "You need to comply with the staff," Officer Drake ordered, his voice deep and intimidating. "Please, you can't do this," Liam shouted, the rawness of his defiance breaking through the tension. His heart raced as he fought the urge to back down, yet the chaos surrounding him felt suffocating. In the rear of the cabin, Emily Dawson whispered to her husband, a sense of unease creeping into her words. "He must have done something wrong. They wouldn't treat him like this otherwise," she muttered, the conditioned trust in authority settling in her heart, a reflex of societal programming. Her husband shifted uncomfortably, but that assertion echoed within her, revealing just how deeply the narratives of racism had been ingrained in her. Liam's phone buzzed with a call from Naya, his wife. His heart sank as he answered. "Liam, I'm so scared. Darius faced profiling at school today. They accused him of stealing a classmate's lunch just because of his skin color," she cried, her voice breaking. Suddenly, the fight for his own dignity took on new weight. "Nia, I'll handle it, I promise," he replied, his resolve strengthening. This wasn't just about him anymore. This was about his son and the legacy they would fight to change. In the midst of the uproar, Theo Martinez stood quietly in the back. His camera captured every moment, a flickering beacon of evidence that would soon ignite a fire of outrage. As he uploaded the confrontation online, he felt a surge of hope. Maybe this would spark change. Later, in the terminal holding area, Liam found himself speaking with Mrs. Evelyn Thompson. Her presence exuded grace, and she shared her experience of being denied access to a VIP lounge simply because of her race. "They think they can break us, but we're stronger together," she said, her words wrapping around Liam like a warm blanket. Inspired by their shared stories, Liam felt a renewed sense of purpose. Together they began jotting down every detail of the incident, turning pain into purpose, ready to stand against injustice. Their collaboration became a symbol of resilience, igniting a collective action against the systemic racism they had both faced. Liam knew this was just the beginning. The fight for justice was far from over. But now he was not alone. Liam stood on the polished stage, the bright lights of the press conference illuminating him as he faced Victoria Langley, the CEO of the airline that had humiliated him. The murmurs of the packed room were a backdrop of tension, with reporters poised to capture every word. Today, we are not just discussing one man's plight, but confronting systemic racism that has plagued this industry for too long, Liam declared, captivating the audience. His voice resonated with confidence, fueled by the countless injustices felt by so many. Victoria adjusted her blazer, her polished appearance a stark contrast to the gravity of the moment. "Liam, while I understand your experience, these incidents are isolated mistakes made by rogue employees. We retain a strong commitment to inclusivity," she replied, the words rolling off her tongue with practiced precision. But the cracks were beginning to show in her demeanor. The weight of the room's anticipation pressed heavily on her shoulders as the reporters leaned in, eager for accountability. Liam stepped closer, his resolve strengthening. "This isn't just a mistake. This is institutional. It's time for you to take responsibility for the culture that allows this to happen." Before Victoria could respond, Theo, the young filmmaker, raised his hand, stepping forward with a confident stride. "Hold on, everyone. I think it's time we hear the truth," he said. And with a flick of his wrist, he played an audio clip for the room to hear. The room fell eerily silent as Chloe's voice echoed through the speakers, admitting to targeting black passengers. It's easier to manage things when we just keep the troublemakers out. Gasps rippled through the crowd like electric shocks, and the atmosphere shifted dramatically. Liam felt the power of truth wash over him, his conviction surging. This is what I mean, these aren't just random occurrences, they're part of a pattern. Overwhelmed by the ambient noise of realization, Liam fought back tears, the memories of humiliation flooding his mind. He recalled the day of the confrontation, the feeling of being stripped of his dignity in front of strangers. I stood there, helpless and humiliated. The people who were supposed to uphold justice turned a blind eye, he said, his voice trembling. For a moment, the room felt like it was bearing down on him, the weight of collective pain and anger mixing with his own. He took a deep breath, steadying himself as he channeled that energy into his words. But today we stand together as a community, united against these injustices. Suddenly, a familiar voice broke through the emotional fog. Liam. Emily stepped forward, her face a mixture of remorse and determination. I need to say something. The crowd turned to her, disbelief etched on their faces. I was wrong. I judged you without understanding, believing the narratives fed to me, she confessed, her voice shaky but clear. I apologize, Liam. Her admission hung in the air, a beacon of hope. People began to murmur amongst themselves, the atmosphere shifting toward empathy and solidarity. This is what change looks like, Liam said, heartwarming as he watched Emily's transformation. We can't be afraid to confront our biases. Cameras flashed as reporters hurried to capture this pivotal moment. Just then, Zara Okoye, a young activist with sharp eyes and a fierce spirit, joined Liam on stage. And that's why we cannot stop here, she exclaimed. Racism is not just personal, it's corporate, rooted deep in profit-driven policies. She unfurled a notebook filled with data, showing patterns of discrimination across multiple airlines. Look here. These aren't isolated incidents. They're part of a calculated strategy, Zara urged, her voice rising with passion. Liam felt invigorated by her words, spurring him to action. It's time to demand accountability. This is not just about one flight. It's about how these systemic issues ripple through every aspect of our lives, he shouted, rallying the crowd. Zara stepped closer, her voice steady and impactful. And remember, my law firm represented victims of racial profiling before. What happened to Liam wasn't random, it was retaliation for standing up. The audience gasped again, stunned by the revelation. The room teetered on the brink of a deeper understanding, the stakes rising higher than before. Liam and Zara stood united, hands clasped on the podium as they faced the audience. We are stronger together, Liam proclaimed, weaving hope into his words. We must stand for one another in solidarity, dismantling the norms that allow racism to thrive. Yes, we will not be silent, Zara added, her voice an anthem of resilience that echoed through the room. The crowd responded with murmurs of agreement, transforming into a chorus of support. This was the moment they had all been waiting for, a chance to fight back against the injustice that had lingered for far too long. As the press conference neared its conclusion, Liam cleared his throat, gathering his thoughts. Today, I vow to hold this airline accountable. We are planting seeds for change that will not be easily smothered, he stated, his gaze sweeping across the audience. His passionate declaration filled the room with an electric energy, a sense of hope cascading down the rows of seats. We will fight for justice and equality, not just for ourselves but for future generations. With that, Liam stepped down from the podium, a smile touching his face as he felt the wave of support wash over him. The seeds for change had been planted, and now it was time to nurture them into a force that would shake the very foundations of systemic racism. Today has been a turning point, Liam said, feeling the adrenaline course through him as the conference room buzzed with anticipation. He stood before a packed audience, reporters ready to capture the moment. But it's about to get even more significant. Victoria Langley, the CEO of the airline, adjusted her collar, her face pale. Liam, I think emotions are running high here. We need to stay focused on the facts, she replied, her voice cracking slightly. Facts? Liam echoed, stepping closer. What facts justify the suffering of thousands? This is about accountability, not just numbers and charts. Suddenly, Victoria took a deep breath, her composure crumbling as she shifted in her seat. All right, I have something to say. It's time for me to be honest, she began, her voice quieter now. The room fell into an expectant hush. I faced discrimination early in my career. I chose to look the other way, believing that keeping my position safe was more important than advocating for change. Gasps erupted from the audience and cameras began whirring as the weight of her confession sank in. I thought I was protecting myself, but I see now that my silence allowed this injustice to fester. I am resigning effective immediately, she declared, her head held high yet vulnerable. The room trembled with reactions, reporters shouting questions, but Liam stepped forward, a fire in his eyes. This isn't just about you, Victoria. It's about all of us. We must hold not just individuals accountable, but the systems that uphold this kind of treatment. As her words echoed through the media, they ignited outrage across the nation. Social media lit up with conversations about complicity and the urgent need for change. Empowered by public support, Liam took decisive action. Today, I announce that we are filing a class action lawsuit against the airline. This is for every passenger who has faced discrimination, he declared, his voice booming with conviction. His confidence radiated hope, transforming his personal pain into a collective fight for justice. No one should ever feel unworthy of respect or dignity, he continued as the crowd erupted in applause, the sound of unity filling the air. Liam, alongside Zara Okoye, began launching a nationwide campaign demanding systemic changes in airline policies. We can't just point out the hurt. We have to create a pathway to healing, Zara said, her eyes bright with determination. This is about inspiring grassroots activism to end these discriminatory practices. We're raising our voices together, demanding transparency and accountability, Liam added, fueled by the momentum they had built. Together, we'll dismantle institutional racism. Months later, at a rally under a bright blue sky, Liam's son, Darius, stood before a crowd holding up his father's legacy. My dad taught me that our voices matter. Together we can change the world, he shouted, the energy of youth resonating with everyone around him. His words ignited the crowd, reminding them that the fight against racism would continue through generations. We will not be silent, Darius proclaimed, raising his fist in solidarity. Together we are stronger. But as the rally stirred hope for a brighter future, an unexpected twist began to unfold. Chloe's brother, unbeknownst to her, had been leaking information about the lawsuit. You knew? Chloe confronted him, heart racing. What? You think I'm on their side? This goes deeper than you know. I'm trying to protect you, he argued. But Chloe's eyes filled with disbelief and betrayal. This revelation cast a shadow over her previous attitudes, forcing Chloe to confront the lengths to which racism infiltrated even those she trusted. As the credits began to roll, viewers were prompted to reflect. What would you do in Liam's shoes? A voice urged softly. How often have you witnessed or experienced subtle acts of racism without realizing it? It's time for us to share our stories and foster empathy. Together, they pose the question. Can we become more aware of the systemic injustices that shape our everyday lives? The call to action resonated, inviting viewers to engage in meaningful conversations about their experiences. Looking toward the horizon, the series began teasing its next powerful chapter. Next up, we take on the hidden injustices present in healthcare, the narrator announced, sparking curiosity and anticipation for the stories yet to unfold. As the final moments played out, the voice echoed with hope. No matter how hard they try to silence us, our voices will always be louder. The message was clear. The fight for change would persist, inspiring viewers to believe in the possibility of a better tomorrow.